Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tier 2 Talk, the Australian Championship. Keane McKenna here with you as always. Welcome back for another week. A really great weekend of football over the weekend. We'll do it again this weekend coming up. I hope you've all been well. I hope you all are being healthy and enjoying the sun or the weather wherever you guys are listening from across Australia. I've been good. I've been at the football over the weekend, went to 3 games, one Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll get into that a bit later on. But I've been really enjoying the Australia Championship. Got to able to come home on Sunday afternoon and watch games on SBS. Being at the grounds, you don't really get that opportunity. This Friday, we'll get to do that because it's in Victoria. Big game there. But it's been really fun, the Australia Championship. Getting to meet a lot of new people, make new friends, get to see some really cool stuff that we'll get into. But it's just been a blast to be able to go to these grounds and see what this championship that I've been talking about, other people have been working towards for months upon years, and it's finally come to fruition. And it's just really fun to get out and about every weekend. And I hope you guys are taking that opportunity as well. Thank you once again for listening to Tier 2 Talk. If you would consider liking, subscribing on Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, I think we're up to 88 followers. So if you're listening to this and you're not already following the podcast, I please implore you to do so. It really means a lot. We're trying to get to 100 followers throughout this Australia Championship, hopefully before the final in about a month and a half or so. Instagram, we're almost up to 450 followers. That's really cool there. And Twitter, we're nearly close to 300 followers. So we're just growing massively on all platforms here at Tier 2 Talk. So I want to thank you guys for everything you've done for myself, for growing this to what it has been. We've got a really great episode for you guys in store for this one, a really long one. We've got a bit of news to get through before we go into our round 2 breakdown. We've got a really good interview to split up the episode, and then we go into our round 3 previews, and then followed by our power rankings heading into the weekend. So I hope you are ready for that. If you don't already know, if you're not following on the Instagram or Twitter, our interview today is with an A-League champion with West United a few years ago. He's the current captain of this year's Australia Cup finalists with Heidelberg United. We'll be joined by Benjamin Collins. He will be our special guest interview. He's joining us a bit later on. And I don't know exactly when this podcast is coming up. I put out a notice on our social saying it might be delayed. It might come out still Wednesday night tonight when I'm recording this, or it might come out Thursday morning. So if it comes out Thursday morning, I apologize for the delay. It was just trying to work this interview in with Ben. I really appreciate him coming on. So getting him on for you guys, I thought it was much better to wait out the time, get it in, get it recorded. We'll hear what he has to say about Heidelberg and the Australia Championship, chuck it in, and then it'll be the best episode it can be, as we always strive to do here on Tier 2 Talk, to try and get you these interviews with these players, with these stars that are making the Australia Championship their own. And there's no bigger team than Heidelberg at the moment, so it's fantastic to get Ben on here a little bit later. So to get into things, we'll go through my thoughts over the weekend. We got a bit of news regarding South Hobart and Sydney Olympic. We'll do our weekend awards, and then we'll go through the first team of the week that was announced by the Australia Championship. So over the weekend, went to Apia versus Sydney United, went to Marconi versus South Hobart, and Sydney Olympic versus Broadmeadow. And it was a really good weekend. It started off with really bipolar weather on Friday night at Leichhardt Oval. Really great day here in Sydney. But you're waiting for those storms to come through. It was saying it was going to storm, waiting all day, looking like it was going to do. Didn't come, and then you hit 6 o'clock when the gates open at Leichhardt Oval, and it was just really windy, and we got a bit of rain. Didn't stick around too much of rain, but it was a very cold, wintry night. But they still got over, I think, 4,000 fans at the game. So it was a really great atmosphere between South Melbourne and West Apia. I think they have been the best 2 teams in terms of putting on a football game, like the production behind it, the atmosphere, the merchandise, everything that has gone into that game experience. I think those 2 are the best. So it's really great to see at Apia. I couldn't help myself but get one of the retro kits they were selling. Had the old National Soccer League badge on there, and being a Australian football fanatic and history buff, you don't really find jerseys with NSL on much these days, so I had to pick that one up. So that was very cool. And the game was really great as well. Got to go to the post-match press conference with Franco Parisi and Presley Ortiz, was able to record that. So we will play that for you guys when we talk about that Sydney United game. But it was a really great start to the weekend. The only downside I will mention, and I won't go too much into detail about this, but one thing I didn't like is when I pulled up to Leichhardt Oval, I counted, I think, 17 police officers outside or just inside the main gate of the Leichhardt Oval stadium there. And I believe 9 of them were that New South Wales riot squad. And instantly, I was like, well, this is a different vibe to last weekend, where Melbourne, we didn't see anything. Now, I don't know if that's just Sydney and Melbourne being different, or if it's the Sydney police just seeing a football game on the schedule and that preconceived notion around football and football fans, football hooligans come into mind. But it didn't give the best welcome to Leichhardt Oval, especially with a lot of young families there. That's the one thing that has been positive about the Australia Championship, is you have seen these young families come out and support these local teams. So it definitely gave a different vibe. Now, luckily, there was no police trouble, no escalation with fans or anything. I think the weather might have dimmed everyone down. But that's the only negative thing I had to say about Friday night. Didn't come to anything, but it was just disappointing to see that, disappointed but not surprised that football is still getting the football treatment by police and by media and stuff like that. But luckily, nothing came to it, and the Australia Championship stayed out of the news for all the wrong reasons, and it was just a positive night at Leichhardt Oval. Marconi, a really good day there, really nice warm day at Marconi Stadium for a good game, good crowd. I think they got 2.5 maybe at that game, so it was really nice to see that full stand there. And then Sydney Olympic on the Sunday, the 1 o'clock kickoff, tough to get people there for the Sunday 1 o'clock game, but still a really healthy crowd there. You had a lot of Broadmeadow fans travelling down from Newcastle, so that gave a bit more in the atmosphere for the crowd. But really positive from what I've seen from the Australia Championship. It has been, especially being in Sydney and going to the NPL games in Sydney, now going to Championship games, you do notice that step up from the NPL games. It's not your regular NPL crowds with maybe 100, 200 people in there. It's a couple thousand. It's good, young crowd mixed with old fans that have been following clubs for years. It's that good mix of past and present. History's there, but it's also the new generation. So that's what I've been really excited to see over the weekend, and we'll get to see more as we go to different grounds this coming weekend, which I'll give out a bit later on. So that's my opinions of the weekend. Really good to see Sydney, turn out for the Australia Championship. You always hear that Melbourne and Victorians, they love to get out to the games. They get really good crowds whenever there's a big game on. So I was a bit worried when it came to Sydney's turn, but really positive from Sydney siders this weekend. First bit of news we have to go into is that South Hobart have made the first coaching change of the Australia Championship season. Now they announced as of Monday, 27th of October, they posted this on the club's Instagram. Based on mutual agreement, Peter Edwards will commence as South Hobart's head coach. The timing reflects the midpoint of the South Hobart group stage campaign in the inaugural Australia Championship. So that means that Edwards would come in, Max Clark, who was the head coach during the NPL season in Tasmania, which won the NPL Tasmania League and the State Cup. He now takes his leave as head coach of South Hobart. He had to say that leading South Hobart to a statewide cup and league wins in 2025 reflects a mountain of work and dedication by the players, the supporting coach staff, and team management. Thank you to the club and all involved for the opportunity and privilege to be on this journey and to be part of the history with South Hobart and Tasmania on the national stage in the Australian Championship. And then Peter Edwards stated this, that he is relishing the opportunity to get started with South, and there's no bigger way to do so than the national spotlight of the Australia Championship. It's a fantastic opportunity to work with the players and staff over the coming weeks as we test ourselves at the highest level and to build a strong platform heading into 2026. Now, I find this really interesting because it was announced back in late September that Edwards was coming in. They didn't make the change initially. They said that Edwards would come on to South Hobart to start the 2026 NPL season and go on from there. Whether they've seen Clark's performances in the Australian Championship, they don't like it and they want to change and try and push out of the group. That could be an influence. I'm sure it's an influence into this decision and to bring Edwards in early, but there could be other factors as well. The mutual agreement kind of gives that vibes that there was multiple reasons to make this call, but it'll be interesting to see if there's an immediate response from South Hobart. Reading here in the release that they post back in September about Peter Edwards, he's joining South Hobart from Sydney FC, where he was the under-18s head coach in the A-League's men's academy. He was also the senior coaching and technical director at Central Coast Mariners Academy. So obviously has that A-League experience, but with that younger age group. So that'll be good for South Hobart because they have a lot of young talent coming up through there. So it'll be interesting, like I said, if there'll be an immediate impact with Edwards coming in, if he stays the ship. But that's the first coaching change and the first piece of news we have to kick off this week's episode. So really interesting news there. The final piece of news we have, and it's a very interesting and funny and weird situation, however you want to look at it. But news broke this morning that Sydney Olympic, who only released a new club badge on Sunday, you would have seen on our Instagram if you haven't checked it out on Sydney Olympics Instagram while you can, because apparently the 3-day-old logo is already under threat of needing to be changed, because Sydney Olympic are facing a trademark issue from the Australia Olympic Committee because of a violation of official Olympic properties. Now, to give you a quick rundown, Sydney Olympic, like I said, released a new logo, had the big S, the Olympic torch coming through that S, and then they had 1957 underneath the S, followed by the Olympic rings as well. Now, it's not the first time the Olympic rings have featured on a Sydney Olympic badge, but the issue this time around is there was apparently and I'll just pull up on the article in front of me. So in 1987, there was the Olympic Insignia Protection Act that basically said any marks that resemble the Olympic motto, symbols, or words cannot be used without formal licensing. And that these are protected Olympic IP reserved exclusively for official Olympic sponsors and license, said an AOC spokesperson. So from the article I read here, it first broke by Vince Rigari. I'm reading the article by Alyssa Bone. She, in her article, got contact with an AOC spokesperson, and the AOC said Sydney Olympic FC did not approach the AOC about this logo specifically, but we will give them a call and talk through Olympic IP permissions, requesting them to remove the rings and torch given they are protected Olympic properties. So regarding this is Sydney Olympic were formed before this 1987 legislation. So they're allowed to call themselves Sydney Olympic. They were Sydney Olympic long before the actual Sydney Olympics in 2000 came along. So that's fine. They're protected that way. But with the new logo they announced, they can't use the Olympic torch or the Olympic rings. Now, they've changed it already to get rid of the Olympic rings, and they just have 1957 underneath the Sydney Olympic wording there. But from the sounds of this, they could be forced to get rid of the Olympic torch, and that's really the key staple of this badge. Now, I wasn't the biggest fan of this badge to start with, in my opinion, because, it doesn't look like your traditional soccer badge, and it's that new age football logos where they're all minimalistic, and, there's a lot of detail in this badge, but it's just very minimalistic. Doesn't look right to me, in my opinion. But it's really interesting that it's 3 days old and they didn't go through the AOC. They probably didn't know that to go through the AOC to get these permissions because they've had them in badges previously. But this is a real interesting story that is unfolding for Sydney Olympic, who aren't doing the best in the Australian Championship to start with. And now they have this legal trademark battle to deal with. So on and off the field, it's not going good for Sydney Olympic. What's also interesting is my favorite part of this new logo was in the Olympic torch. They have the Sydney Opera House. in the Flames, which I thought was a really cool thing. But apparently, there's also a trademark issue there because the article said that the Sydney Kings faced similar issues with the Opera House legal team in 2020, with the NBL failing to come to an agreement to incorporate the landmark into the logo. But the Kings were later approved to use an outline of the Opera House. So not only are they fighting with the AOC in terms of trademark rights, they'll have the Sydney Opera House to deal with as well. So it's really fascinating to see how this one plays out if Sydney Olympic are forced to transition back to their old logo, the circular one, which they launched with the Australia Championship. But I find it weird that they launched this new logo mid-Australia Championship to start with. But now they could be forced to scrap this whole logo and forget it ever happened. But keep an eye on this one. We'll keep you up to date. But just a very funny story that could see the death of the new logo in just a matter of days. Moving on, we will head to our weekend awards. We did this last weekend, in where we award the best crowd, food, ground, team, and game from our weekend outings at the grounds, to kind of give you guys what we thought at the grounds and see if you guys agree, disagree, and you can guys give us out your thoughts at tier2talk_TAC, both on Instagram and Twitter. So the best crowd was the West Apia fans. I thought they came out in good numbers. They got behind their teams. Merchandise was there. They had drums, little kind of active bay, if you want to call it that. But really good crowd there from West Apia, so I applaud them. Best food goes to Sydney Olympic. In-stadium food wasn't the best, but they did have a Greek food truck outside the ground. And you can't really go wrong with the Greek food there. The best ground, I will say, is West Apia. When you look at Leichhardt Oval, when they play out of Leichhardt Oval, it's probably the best. I wouldn't say the best. I'd probably say, in terms of modern facilities, I'd probably say South Melbourne have the best ground at Lakeside there, regardless of the racetrack around it. Leichhardt's just that little bit old school. They've got no scoreboard, no replay, video monitor or anything like that. So, but still a fine class, and they do well with the stands and everything there as well. The best team I saw over the weekend was West Apia, so it's a three-peat for West Apia this weekend, just really solid all around. But the best game was the Sydney Olympic versus Broadmeadow Magic, and where Broadmeadow survived a late scare from Sydney Olympic to come out 3-2 winners. So really good game there, and we hope to do it again this weekend as we go to 3 games this coming weekend. I'll share what those games will be towards the end of the episode. The last bit of news we have to read out before we head into our Match Week 2 breakdown is we have our first Team of the Week of the Australia Championship. Now we'll just read out the Week 2 Team of the Week because that's what we're about to talk about. But you can read all about the Team of the Week for Round 1 and Round 2 in my latest article. Yes, I am helping the Australia Championship write some articles over the next few weeks. So every Monday, you can read my article. It'll be up on the Australia Championship website. You can see it on my Twitter and Instagram as well. But every week, we'll go through the Team of the Week. We'll say who's in it and give a little kind of summary as to what they did over the weekend to be awarded that spot in the Team of the Week by our group of commentators. So the Round 2 Team of the Week for the Australia Championship, it starts with in goals is Lewis Italiano from Bayswater City. At fullbacks, you have Sean Simmons from West Apia and Jamal Ali from Heidelberg United. At the centre-back positions, it's unchanged from the Team of the Week from Round 1. It's Jackson Stevens, who we interviewed last week from Bayswater City, and Brendan Kelly, centre-back there for West Apia. It's a midfield 4 for this week's Team of the Week, consisting of Aaron Cox from Broadmeadow Magic, Michael Conestabo from Spirit, Anthony Lesiotis from Heidelberg United, and Max Green from Canberra, Croatia. And the front 2 is made up of Manuel Leguect, who scored a double in South Melbourne's win, and you had hat-trick hero Damien Sekenis from Marconi Stallions. So that's the Team of the Week for Round 2. Like I said, you can find the article I wrote on the Australia Championship website if you want to know more about why those specific players got into that Team of the Week. Now it is time to head into our Round 2 breakdown. where we start with the Friday night game. We talked about it a bit already. It's the West Apia versus Sydney United 58 at Leichhardt Oval. And it was a 4-0 win for West Apia. Presley Ortiz, Brendan Kelly, Sean Simmons, and Dominic Constanzo with the goals for West Apia. I actually thought that Sydney United started off the stronger of the two sides for the opening 20 minutes or so. They were really troubling Apia, and I thought they could have snuck in an early goal if they had taken their chances. But Apia down the wing through their familiar man and Kambiashi were always dangerous, and once they got one, there was no going back for the boys from Leichhardt. Apia are with Heidelberg as the most dangerous team in the Australian Championship. I think they're really rock solid in defence, tied for the best defence with Heidelberg. An attack that showed in this one that they can hurt you from all angles, front to back. They had a centre back and left back score. Their attackers scored from a corner, free kick, and penalty in all the one game. So really dynamic and explosive attack that can hurt you in so many ways. For Sydney United, outside that first 15 minutes, they were really poor in this one. No attack that really troubled the Apia's defense. They had a penalty save in the 91st minute, but other than that, wasn't too much to show for. And the defense just couldn't stop the onslaught from Apia. It was really game settled. It was 3-0 at halftime. So Apia very much in cruise control and will climb to the top of Group D there. And like I said on Friday night in our post-game video from the ground, it makes their draw against Baseball City look a whole lot worse, as they now sit 1 point from 6 and will have to welcome Metro Stars this coming weekend in what is almost a must-win game if Sydney United want to get out of the group. Now, thanks to Apia and Jude Dolan, who is the social media man there at West Apia, we were able to go to the post-match press conference with head coach Franco Parisi and star striker Presley Ortiz. We were able to ask them a few questions along with a few of other journalists that were in the room. So we get to play you a little bit of that snippet now, and you get to hear what Franco Parisi thought about his side 4-0 win on Friday night.
Franco, 2 games, 2 wins. How wins long?
Yeah, very excited. I mean, I spoke to someone after the game and they said, 4-0, 4-0, but we focused for 3 points. So now after 2 games, we're sitting exactly where we want to. Oliver Callett's making a super save to keep the clean sheet. That's exciting too.
And Presley, first goal of competition. You've had a wonderful season leading into this as well. What are you taking from the goal today?
Just, obviously, most important is we got the win. Obviously, I'm happy to score. I always want to get on the score sheet whenever I play, so, I'm just happy that I did that today.
Franco, we were here about 2 months ago and you won, and you said, I'll never forget it, you said, sexy football won today. Sexy football won again today. And it's a few fans.
It's exactly that. And we don't mean to say sexy football in a way to discredit the game. We all love this game, but it's genuinely to excite the fans, to give them something to come back for, to say, I just saw, say I can actually roll it past him. I just saw Presley turn and hit a bottom corner of his left peg. I saw Drayden hunt someone down, turn in one movement and play a pass. I saw Cameron Fong tackle 3 people in 3 seconds. It's all sexy football. It's not limited to a flick or a bicycle or a beautiful goal. It's everything we're doing on the field. And so when you watch a game like tonight, we can with comfort say it was sexy football. In the midfield, we have some of our boys just bouncing, and they come the other side. So we pride ourselves on that, and the players have total freedom and confidence to do it. And for me, that means sexy football. It just adds to it. You want to watch that. There's not any part of the game today that people thought, that was a bit boring. It was pretty exciting.
Franco, you make the trip out west now to Baseball City next weekend.
Yes.
Does having 2 wins already under belt make that trip a bit easier for you? And what does preparations look like going to that one?
Yeah, no game will ever be easy. And from what we've seen in Bayswater last week and watching their own competition, they're a very physical side, very organised side, very motivated and hungry side. So it's going to be a very tough game. We're not familiar with travelling that far, adjusting to body clock. So it's a 1:30 game in Perth, it's a 4:30 game here. That shouldn't be too much of an issue, but it's just a matter of getting over there, relaxing and feeling good. But it's going to be a war. It's not going to be a battle. It's going to be a war. It's going to be crazy. So we don't take it lightly. We need to push for 9 points. There's still 4 games to go in this group. 6 points will not get you through. You need more than that.
The first game of Super Saturday, it was between Marconi Stallions and South Hobart at Marconi Stadium. It was a 4-0 win for the Marconi Stallions. A Damien Sekenis hat-trick is the headline for this game. 1 in the first half, 2 in the second, before a deflected shot from James Bayliss found its way in for Marconi's 4th. It was a much-needed and defining win for the Stallions, who climb up into second on goal difference of Group B. Needed to turn around after their opening weekend loss to Heidelberg, and they did just that at home. For South Hobart, they were well beaten in this one. They put up a fight, but ultimately Marconi were too strong and showed their class in the end in this one. The other game on Super Saturday was the Wollongong Wolves and Heidelberg showdown at Collegians Sports Centre. And it wasn't so much of a showdown, but one-way traffic for Heidelberg, could come away 3-0 winners. A very impressive win for the Burgers. It was Jamal Ali, Anthony Lezios, and Angus Taylor who got on the score sheets down in the gong. Heidelberg have now knocked off two of the top teams in New South Wales, in Marconi in the first week, Wollongong the second week. They have South Hobart this weekend at home, and they don't look like slowing down. And we'll talk to Ben just a little bit later about his side's performance in this one and how they're shaping up for the South Hobart game this Sunday. The first Sunday game we'll review is Sydney Olympic versus Broadmeadow Magic, and it was a fantastic win for Broadmeadow, who came away 3-2 winners. They were on the right side of a 3-2 result this weekend. Ezra Polabimi and Aaron Cox were in with the goals for Magic. I think the first one is an own goal, but it was not confirmed. It looked like it came off a Sydney Olympic defender, but one thing at the moment is there's no real stats for the Australia Championship, so it's hard to confirm who got the last touch there via the live stream. But nonetheless, those were your 3 goal scorers. For Sydney Olympic, it was their new signings and men off the bench that came up with the goods. It was Gloria Amanda and Ali Agwek with the goals for Sydney Olympic, but ultimately they left it too late in this one. And I really think that Sydney Olympic were poor attackingly until they made that triple substitution around the hour mark. I can't tell you who exactly came on at the hour mark, but they made a difference. They pushed Olympic forward, and they actually started looking like they were going to create some chances and show a sign of life. Though ultimately, when you're 2-0 down, you get one back through Amanda, and then your keeper at the other end not has a brain collapse, but comes out, misses the ball, player goes around him, and Cox slots it home for the winning goal. You look back at that and you're like, well, that could have been avoided. It was your own corner up the other end, and you get counter-attack left 1-on-1, and little individual errors cost them greatly in this one. Broadmeadow, I think, were really good for their money, and they deserved the 2-0 lead, and they survived the late scare. They took their chance with Cox, like I just said, and they now have a huge battle at home against South Melbourne this coming weekend. They're on 3 points in Group A, and I think with South Melbourne coming to town, then there is a great chance for another upset here. They've knocked off one great side. They'd be asking a question of why can't they do 2? Another fantastic game and another 3-2 result. It was the Canberra Croatia versus Preston Lions in the nation's capital at Deakin Stadium, and Canberra Croatia picked up a famous win and their first win in the Australia Championship in their home debut. Addis Bayu, on his Preston debut, gave his side the lead 35 minutes in. Daniel Colbadado equalised for Croatia before the halftime stoppage, but Preston would have the final punch in the first half, going in the break 2-1 lead thanks to Oliver Kublai. Though 2 unanswered second half goals from Max Green ultimately gave Canberra Croatia the win at home and in front of their home supporters, and it will set up a very intriguing match with Spirit this weekend in Sydney. For Preston, it's a really disappointing result, and in back-to-back weeks now, they've dropped points from winning positions. 1-0 up against Spirit in the opening weekend. They drew 1-1 there, and then they were up 1-0 in this one, 2-1 up, actually, and they eventually lost 3-2. So they're sitting at the bottom of Group C, and they'll need to pick themselves up before it gets too late for them to do anything about it. The first of the 4:30 games, this one was out west in Bayswater City against Metro Stars at Frank Drago Reserve, and it was a 1-0 win for Baysy, who now pick up 4 points in their opening 2 games. In a fiery and intense contest between the West Australia champions and South Australia premiers, it was Giles Davies who, in a scrap, bundled over the lone goal for the win for Baysy. Baysy are now 3 points ahead of United in second and are in a strong position coming up to the halfway point of the group stages. Metro, on the other hand, they suffer a second 1-0 defeat and are still awaiting their first goal and point in the championship, though they do have a good chance this weekend when they come east to Sydney United on Saturday, with both teams in need of a point. South Melbourne versus Moreton City Excelsior. It was the top of Group A battle at Lakeside Stadium, and it was a 2-0 win for South Melbourne, who go 6 points from 6 to start the Australia Championship. Manny Aguek scored both goals in the 2-0 victory, including a halfway screamer. The one South Melbourne junior and current NPL Victoria top goal scorer showed that he is continuing his prolific goal-scoring season in the Australian Championship, and he has no sign in slowing down. He's still coming off the bench as well, so maybe this weekend we may see him make his first start for South Melbourne since coming back to the club. Moreton City, on the other hand, they fought well, but ultimately it wasn't enough. They returned home this weekend in where they face a struggling Sydney Olympic side in where points are vital for both teams. Moreton looking to get out of the group, Sydney just looking to get off the ground in the Australia Championship. And the final game from round 2, it was probably the best game of round 2. They saved it right to last. It was a 3-3 draw between the NPL New South Wales Premiers NWS Spirit and the NPL Victoria Premiers Avondale FC. Avondale went 2-0 up thanks to goal from Christian Czarjeski and Bruno Fornaroli. But at the 50-minute mark, Michael Conestabo began the Spirit comeback with an absolute screamer from 25 yards out. The goal was the first of 3 in a row for Spirit, who thought they had completed the comeback. But in the 97th minute, Amir Abdallah tapped in the equalising goal for the Avengers to thwart Spirit's party as Avondale hold on to top spot in Group C. I think there's good signs and good takeaways for both these sides. They showed their talent, but ultimately couldn't hang on for the win. Spirit, like Alex Molchanoff said in commentary, got a taste of their own medicine. They scored late on against Preston in week 1 to gain a point this time around. They concede late to drop 2 points there. Avondale, on the other hand, like I said, over the last 2 weeks, any point on the road is a good point. Now, they were 2-0 up. You think Avondale, with their quality, should have held on and should have held out and taken all 3 points back down to Melbourne. But to rescue a point, you'd say you take it. You probably would have taken a draw at the start of the game anyway. And Group C is really tight now with Canberra winning a game. Spirit's got 2 points. Preston's not doing too hot at the moment. So really interesting there in Group C. And when I posted the group standings yesterday on our Instagram, you guys said that Group C was the most interesting group so far in the Australia Championship, and to see how that one will turn out over the next 4 weeks as we continue on with the group stages. And now we will cut to our interview with Benjamin Collins of Heidelberg United, and we'll hear what he has to say about the Australia Championship, his side's stellar and historic season, and see how they're looking to keep going as the Australia Championship continues along this coming weekend. Ben, thank you for joining us this week.
Thank you very much for having me.
Today?
It's great to be here and going well.
So our first question will be about the weekend performance, your first out-of-state trip all season long. You came up to Wollongong to face the Wolves at Collegiate Stadiums, and it was a very impressive 3-0 win for your side. You helped keep a clean sheet at the back there. How were you guys able to come to an unfamiliar territory but put in such a comprehensive victory?
Yeah, it was exciting to get away first and foremost, because we've had unfortunate run in the cup. If you're someone who likes to travel interstate, we've had probably 10 cup games in the last couple of seasons, and they've all been at home, more or less, which, not complaining, but the boys are always excited for an away trip, so it was good to get away. But in terms of the game, it was we started off a little bit shaky. Sort of the first 10-15 minutes we were quite under the pump, but showed great resilience, and once we scored that goal, the tables turned a little bit, and we sort of started to control the game, and they didn't make it easy for us, but running away 3-0 winners interstate is always a good feeling, and makes the travel worth it. So it was quite a warm day. It was a great atmosphere. They had the wolf being chased by the kids at halftime, which was a funny bit of halftime entertainment.
The best halftime entertainment I've ever seen, in my opinion.
Yeah, the best halftime entertainment is a great way to put it. So, it was an awesome win, and to start the championship off with 2 wins after the Australia Cup loss is, I think, probably a really, a great position and a great way that the team's bounced back from a disappointing day in the Oz Cup final. But great way to start the Oz Championship.
Yeah, and definitely, and we'll talk more just in a little bit about your long season and the highs and the lows you guys have experienced. Um, but to go back to your opening game, you got to host Marconi Stallions in a big, old NSL recapture history game to start off your Australia Championship run at Olympic Park in front of 2,000 fans. You were the captain, you led your side out, you kept a clean sheet as well. Probably your most famous year in history in modern time. How was that for you as yourself to lead your team out on this new national stage in this new tournament?
Yeah, it's an exciting tournament. I think, we've been quite busy this year, so we probably haven't given it a whole heap of thought, except for the last couple of weeks, and we've had to turn our attention to it pretty quickly. And it's become apparent that it's been a great competition so far. The first 2 rounds, over 50 goals scored, some absolute screamers that have floated into the net. So so far the competition's been amazing. I think our first game against Marconi, it was great to see the Heidelberg faithful there and supporting us as they've done all season. And like you touched on, an old school NSL rivalry, which didn't take long to sort of become a light. There was always a few on-field scruffles here and there, so it's interesting playing a team where you don't know the players previously, and there's no history there. So it's quite a unique situation for us, because normally we play players that we've played against for a number of years, and there's sort of always a little bit of history there and always a few scruffles. So I guess it was good to have that intensity against a club that we haven't played in a long time. And it's always great to walk away winners as well. So it's been an awesome start.
Yeah. You guys have had a 40+ game season, the longest season out of any of the NPL clubs, out of any of the Australia Championship clubs. You've competed on all 4 fronts. You've had the highs, the Australia Cup run, the NPL Victoria Championship win, but you also faced a lot of lows as well throughout the season. How do you think you and your manager and other players have, managed to play all these games, had all these emotions, and still be competing 10 months after your preseason started back in January and February?
Yeah, I mean, well, we started training preseason in November last year, so it's
even longer.
It's coming up to it's coming up to 12 months, and might push into a 13th month, which is pretty unheard of in sort of Australian football and around the world as well. So like you touched on, a lot of highs, but also a few lows. I mean, we started the season with a loss in our first game against Melbourne Knights, who were ultimately relegated. So it's, when you look back at the season of a whole, it's pretty interesting to think about where we started. But like you touched on, there was lows, but we had to rebound from them, and we've gotten to those highs as well. And I think it's a testament to just how close the group is. Off the field as well, always hanging out, and there's a great culture, and everyone gets along with everyone. And it's also that, and it's the coaches and how they set us up and how they coach us and stick to their structures and keep us in check, because they always stay at a pretty consistent level with their emotions, and we don't change week on week too much what we do, and just tinker with what we need to based on who we're playing. But it's not like we change anything too much. So each week there's always a few changes to the squad, but everyone comes in and knows their roles, because it doesn't change. And I think that's what's helped us, reach a pretty high level of success this year, is because everyone knows their responsibilities. So, had the lows of, losing the Doherty Cup final and not winning the premiership, for finishing first on the ladder. But then we've had the highs of winning the NPL grand final and making the Australia Cup final, which feels like a little bit of a low now, but it's sort of important to look back on the run we had and try and treat it as a high, because it was a pretty incredible achievement. But still hurts a little bit that we couldn't get the chocolates, because I think that would have been quite the high.
Yeah, no, definitely there would have been some party at Heidelberg there if you get up there. One of the questions I had was to talk quickly about the Australia Cup run. Like you said, unable to come away with it, but you look on the run, 3 A-League sides you're able to knock off, including the Premiers in Auckland. you flew the flag for not only Heidelberg, but NPL clubs and, eventually the Australia Championship. Looking back on it now, could you feel the momentum not only going into that final, but for what the possible future of club football looks like in Australia with what NPL clubs could play in it?
No, I think what this year's brought is probably realization to not just me and Heidelberg, but I think a lot of the clubs around Australia are realizing that there's probably, and with the help of the Australian Championship, there is a place for the NPL clubs on a national level, and I think that's what's great about the Australian Championship. And it may have helped that Heidelberg, we had a good run in the Australia Cup and got people talking about NPL teams on the national stage. So I think there is a real place for it, and I think the build up and what we as a club and players and coaches were experiencing in the lead up to the final was something that, potentially we might never get to relive again, because I think the league, the competition and the support that we felt from, being front page of the newspaper a few times, it's something that, A-League clubs struggle to get on. And as an NPL club, we sort of had this exposure, on news channels, and everyone's talking about it at work, and all friends are talking about it. So it was a pretty exciting build up, and it would have been, super special to win. And it would have been a few parties, but it wasn't to be. But I still think that there's been a huge momentum shift in I guess how people view NPL and the place that it holds is not just state competitions around Australia, but it also, the platforms being created with the Oz Championship for it to become a national platform, and hopefully that takes Australian football to a whole new level. And promotion relegation to the A-League has to be the aim, and I think that will, it will be a struggle. It will be a struggle for some clubs, but it's a struggle for clubs all around the world when there's promotion and relegation, and that's part and parcel of being a professional sporting organisation, is that it's not always going to be smooth sailing. And maybe we're a little bit too nice, and we're a little bit too protective here in Australia of our brand and our pride. And some clubs are going to suffer if there's promotion relegation, but that's the beauty of sport and the redemption I guess opportunity that it would provide.
Well, that's exactly the point, that football fans, football players have that view, because your story with Heidelberg could be on a yearly basis if there was that promotion relegation. It doesn't, like, cup runs are always special. You see that in England, Italy, all across the world. Like, cup runs are great, but then you get those promotion stories as well. And like you said, I think it's a mistapped opportunity that football does hold, and hopefully with the Australia Championship that does one day come to fruition. That's the ultimate long goal that needs to be put in place here.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, even the excitement around the Oz Championship, I mean, imagine if it was it was an opportunity for a place in the A-League next season, for instance, it would be tenfold. So it's I think it will also bridge the gap between supporters potentially, having a bit of push back on the A-League because they're too loyal to their to old school, or for whatever reason people don't watch the A-League. I think bridging the gap between promotion and relegation will help the A-League as well, because more people will be wanting to watch the A-League because it's an attainable competition that their club can, or any club in Australia can participate in. So hopefully it's not too far away, but not holding my breath.
No, neither am I until you see it pen and paper, and then even then you got to see it actually come through. But like you said, it can only help benefit, because even the championship time slots, it's the 1 and 3 o'clock games, so that it's not clashing with the A-League, so on and so forth. But we could spend, I'm sure, hours upon talking about promotion, relegation, and what we want for Australian football.
For sure.
One final question before we head into talking about your South Hobart game. It kind of ties in well, but so you've played with West United a few seasons back, won the A-League with them, played for Melbourne Knights in NPL Victoria, now captaining Heidelberg, and now you're in the championship. We've already talked about, what you've seen about the championship and promotion, relegation, hopes like that, but from your personal view, playing at the highest level and playing at the state level, like you said, does this help bridge that gap? Do you see that kind of step up from the NPL, but not quite that A-League level kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the A-League, even at just starting, sort of recently the new season, it still definitely is, that step above or a couple steps above the NPL. You've got top players in the A-League in Australia, which people probably don't appreciate as much as they maybe should, because the standard of players in the A-League is very, very high. I'm not sure if it's the NPL, getting a little bit better. Is that what is bridging the gap? But I think it's an interesting position, and I think for me, I mean, my time in the A-League was pretty special. It was a dream come true to sort of sign a professional contract, and then winning the A-League grand final was something awesome as well. So it's I can't remember what the question was, so you might have to edit this out, but go
just kind
with
of
that.
We've kind of already touched on it throughout our conversation, but it was just kind of, your experience playing football. Does that championship do exactly what it's supposed to do and bridge that gap? Yeah,
I think the championship does bridge the gap between the A-League and NPL. It's started at a great time with the A-League starting. There's been a lot of build and hype up to the start of it, and I think having it at the same time as A-League starting is potentially a good thing, because it draws eyeballs across football sort of the whole day. Super Saturday, you've got the Australian Championship games throughout the day, and then you've got the A-League games at night. So there's lots of football on, and from a footballing point of view, it also allows players the opportunity to express themselves on the national stage, which hopefully A-League clubs are also watching this competition to see. There's might be a gem floating around that hasn't been picked up yet, and that could be the next big thing. So I'm sure there's only good things that are going to come out of this Australian Championship to help the A-League as well.
Yeah. Final question, looking towards this weekend's game, you welcome South Hobart to Olympic Park, and after 2 wins against Marconi and Wollongong, you guys must surely feel confidence heading into this one and continuing your such good run in the Australia Championship so far.
Yeah, I mean, we've been confident going into each game, and I don't think there's a reason why we shouldn't be confident to win, but that also means that we've got to, we don't take each opponent lightly, because everyone brings different challenges, and Hobart, they might have not picked up a point in the first 2 games, but that doesn't mean that we're guaranteed to win. We're still going to have to put in as much hard work as we've done the previous 2 games, and hopefully that brings a result. But South Hobart losing their coach, I think, as well, now being replaced. That's always the most dangerous time to play a team, because everyone's trying to impress the new coach. So we're not going to be able to take the foot off the pedal, but hopefully we walk away winners. And sort of cement ourselves on top of our group with 3 games to go, and then we'll see what happens, and hopefully go through to the quarterfinals. But have to get past a tough opponent this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Ben, thank you very much for coming on and joining us here at 2 Talk. Fantastic guests. I loved it. Chat we had. Good luck with this weekend against South Hobart. Good luck with the rest of the group stages, and hopefully we'll see you in the quarterfinal stages with Heidelberg.
Yep. No, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you to Ben for coming on to the show. Really appreciate him making the time for us. We were able to sort out timing around his schedule. His training schedule is very busy for them, as you would have heard, at Heidelberg United, and we appreciate him coming on the show. We now head into our round 3 preview as we reach the halfway point of the group stages. Crazy to think that this is already halfway through of the Australia Championship group stages. It won't be too long in where teams could possibly be on the verge of qualifying for the knockout stages come next weekend in round 4. But first, we're going to go through round 3, and we will start by firstly giving you guys a rundown of the groups and the points. You can always see this information first on our Instagram and Twitter at tier2talk_TAC. So starting off with Group A, you have South Melbourne in pole position, 6 points from 6, have a goal difference of +3. followed by Broadmeadow Magic, in where they have a win and a loss and are sitting on 3 points with 0 goal difference. Morden City are right behind them, only behind them on goal difference, as they have 3 points and a -1 goal difference. And Sydney Olympic are 0 from 2 in the Australia Championship with 0 points and a -2 goal difference in 4th. Group B, the group of death, Heidelberg are sitting pretty in the group of death at the moment. They're 6 points from 6 and have a +4 goal difference after their 3-0 win over Wollongong Wolves. Marconi have climbed up into 2nd on goal difference ahead of Wollongong, as they sit on 3 points and a goal difference of 3. Wollongong Wolves, they dropped down, still on 3 points, but their goal difference suffered with that loss to Heidelberg as they go to -1. And South Hobart are at the bottom of Group B with no points and a -6 goal difference. Group C, which is the tightest group out of all the groups coming into round 3, Avondale are at the top with a win and a draw, sitting on 4 points and 2 goal difference. Canberra Croatia, they climb all the way up from last to 2nd to come into round 3. They're on 3 points, still a -1 goal difference, but they won't mind at the moment as they sit above the team they versed this weekend in NWS Spirit. Spirit 2 draws in their opening 2 games, 0 goal difference, so a good chance for them to climb up the ladder. And Preston Lions are at the bottom of Group C with 1 draw, 1 loss, -1 goal difference, and 1 point to come away with it. Group D, and this is the group where I think these sides could really make a step towards the knockout stages this weekend, if results go their way. So West Apia are atop of Group D. They have 2 wins to start the Australia Championship, and they have a +5 goal difference, so sitting on 6 points. Bayswater City, one of the surprise teams to come out of the Australia Championship so far. They're on 1 win and 1 draw. Goal difference of +1, and they're sitting on 4 points. And those two sides play each other. We'll get into that later on. But if either of those sides win and, say, Sydney United and Metro draw, then that's really an advantage to jump into that quarterfinal spot early on. Sydney United are in 3rd. They have just the 1 draw and 1 loss throughout their campaign. They're on a -4 goal difference, though, after that 4-0 hammering to West Apia in round 2. And Metro Stars, they're at the bottom of Group D with 2 losses, -2 goal difference, still waiting on their first goal and their first point here in the Australian Championship. So with saying that, we will now head into our round 3 preview, and it doesn't get any bigger than this opening game on Friday night. It's a Victorian derby between Preston Lions at Avondale FC, 7:35 at Janet Steele Stadium, and it'll be streaming on SBS On Demand. These sides very familiar with each other. Preston coming back up to the NPL Victoria for the first time in 16 years. They faced off against Avondale already twice this season, their last meeting ending in a 1-1 draw, but it was Avondale who got the first win back in March between these two sides with a 3-1 win. And just coming off the point of where I said Group C is the tightest group in the Australia Championship, both sides need to keep up collecting points in what will be a great atmosphere and a hostile environment. Now, when I went to Preston 2 weeks ago for the opening game, they got, I think, 4,000 at that game. It wasn't the best I've seen Janet Steele Stadium by any stretch of means. Even Luke Jago, the captain at Preston, said to myself that he thought it'd be a bigger crowd there. I think Janet Steele Stadium is built for night games. I think they're built for the big occasion, and I think this game warrants that greatly. I think their fans will come out in numbers. Being a Friday night, it's a bit better for working people to get out to the grounds. And when it's Avondale, you have Avondale supporters traveling. They traveled up well to Sydney on the weekend gone by. So they show that their intent to follow the team wherever they go. So really looking forward to this game to kick off Friday night. And it's a novelty for me because I haven't actually watched too many games on SBS. I've usually been at a ground or watching a game somewhere that SBS is kind of like an afterthought and you watch the highlight reels. But this one, I'll be on my couch getting to watch this and getting to watch the great coverage that SBS has been doing so far. The first game of Super Saturday, and it's a super Saturday to start this weekend because it is a NPL New South Wales rivalry between Marconi Stallions and Wollongong Wolves at Marconi Stadium at the 1 o'clock time slot. This one live and free on SBS main channel. A huge game in Group B with both sides looking to get out of the group. They need a win here against their biggest rivals in the group. Wollongong famously won at the Palace already this year in what ended Marconi's undefeated start in the NPL New South Wales, and it was a convincing fashion as well. It was a 3-0 win. So Wollongong will be hoping to do the same again. In my opinion, I think Wollongong will need their defence to step up away from home and stop Marconi from having another strong day. At the Palace, Marconi will need to be ruthless as they were against South Hobart and not like they were against Heidelberg to get over the line in this one. It'll be a close game, and I think it could sway either way. If you're doing our tipping competition, I think this is where most people will slip up. For this coming weekend, we had a few teams. We had everybody in our tipping competition slip up between Sydney Olympic and Preston. Everyone tipping those two sides to win and ruining a perfect weekend there. So for those listening that are in the tipping competition, I think this game is going to be the real kind of 50-50 one. It can go either way. I think it'll also be a draw. If I had to tip, I think based off being at home, what they showed last week, what Wollongong showed last week, I'm going to be tipping in the way of Marconi Stallions for this one. Damien Sekenis hopefully getting on the score sheet again for Marconi. Wollongong, on the other hand, they need to really get Lachlan Scott, Nicholas Olsen into the mix, as they haven't been yet seen in the Australia Championship. 3 o'clock game on the Super Saturday is at Sydney United Sports Centre, just across the road from Marconi Stadium. It's between Sydney United 58 and Metro Stars, also on SBS. It's a must-win game for both sides if they want any hope of getting out of Group D. Neither side has won so far and only have 1 goal scored between the two of them. Someone's attack needs to shine and needs to step up if they want to collect points in this one. And the other thing that, like I said, about the Bayswater and Apia game is this game is interesting because both these sides be hoping that Bayswater loses to Apia and it brings Bayswater back into the mix and it propels one of these two sides, if they win, into that conversation of getting the second spot out of the group. For the loser, on the other hand, it will be needing a minor miracle to escape the group. Because if, say, Metro win, they'll go to 3 points. Bayswater, if they lose, they'll be on 4, and Sydney United be on 1. And Sydney United still have to go to Metro Stars and Bayswater City in their last 3 games. They have Apia at home, but they need to win this home game, Sydney United, if they want a good shot to get out. For Metro, on the other hand, it's their second last away trip. They have to come out to Sydney once again, not this weekend, but the following weekend to face Apia before 2 home games. But you want to pick up a win here or win at Apia before you go into those 2 home games, because you don't want to be needing points, or needing 3 points, I should say, to end the group stage if you want to get out. A draw will favour neither side. I think that will be the worst possible case. So both coaches need to get their attacks going, need to find a way to win this game by any means possible, whether it's clean, whether it's scrappy. Just any means that gets the job done is what is required here on the Saturday. Moving over to Sunday action, and starting off, it's at Perry Park between Moreton City Excelsior, who come home for the first time in this Australia Championship. They welcome Sydney Olympic at the 1 o'clock slot on Sunday, October 26th. This one on SBS On Demand. And Sydney Olympic need to pick up a big away win if they want to continue into the knockout stages. Moreton City suffered a setback last week to South Melbourne, but their opening win against Broadmeadow Magic 3-2 helps them going into this one. Like I said, it's the first home game for Moreton City, who are away to South Melbourne, away to Broadmeadow Magic. And now they finally get to come to Perry Park, which has been a long discussion in the Australia football landscape as to needing updates and upgrades. It will finally get its dues on the national stage. And Moreton City be happy to bring the Australia Championship up to the Sunshine State for the first time this weekend. Labanon Haliti needs to get his squad right for this one, as he relied on his substitute to help him out last week, and ultimately it was too little too late. They can't afford to start slow again. I think Moreton will punish you if you do start slow. They have a stellar attack and stellar midfield, and yeah, they just can't afford too many more slip-ups Olympics if they want to be serious contenders to get out of the group stages in Group A. My last note I have for this game is that it's a bigger game for Olympic than it is for Excelsior. But with Magic playing South, it could be a big step towards the quarterfinals if Excelsior pick up the 3 points and, say, Magic drop points to South Melbourne at home. Speaking of that game, that's the next one we're going to be talking about. It's at Magic Park between Broadmeadow Magic and South Melbourne, and it's top of the group showdown in Group A. South have started on fire in their first 2 games, but make their first away trip of the group stages to one of the biggest surprises of the championship so far. Magic return home after picking up that 3-2 win away at Sydney Olympic, and they'll be hoping to win at home this time around as compared to their last home game where they lost 3-2 to Moreton City. For me, the key for Magic is they will have to limit South's chances and take them when they get their own. South Melbourne are the kind of team that have so many different outlets and so many different ways to attack you that they need to limit at least some of them. Maybe the long throws is what you neutralize, whether it's Manny Aguek and the long ball over the top. But you need to limit them. And just like you did against Sydney Olympic, you need to take your chances when they come. For South Melbourne, they need to show their strength and dominance in the middle of the park to get the ball forward and create an onslaught on the Magic goal. I think last week where Sydney Olympic failed themselves is they just didn't keep going at the Magic goal. I think they let Magic, ease off defensively, and they were able to use their effort to go forward. I think if you're South Melbourne, you need to just create just wave after wave of attack, and where Magic can't get out, they can't play their own way, they can't create chances, and they just need to pound it in until they get one. And if you get 2 for South Melbourne this one, I don't think Broadmeadow can come back. NWS Spirit and Canberra Croatia create an interesting clash at Christie Park at 4:30 on the Sunday. 2 points in NWS Spirit versus 3 points in Canberra Croatia. Second place Croatia and third place Spirit. It's a really close battle here in what will be an intriguing one that I'll be watching on Sunday. Spirit nearly came from behind and knocked off Avondale last weekend. Canberra were able to complete the comeback and beat Preston. So good weekend against Victorian rivals, both these clubs. Canberra have been fighters in their opening 2 games. They'll be looking to do the same on the road once again. Spirit will be looking to build off their 2 draws and hope that this is their first time they're able to pick up all 3 of the Australia Championship season. This one's really intriguing me because I don't know who this one is going to favour. Because from what I've seen of Canberra Croatia, they were really dominant. Spirit didn't offer too much. But that's from the first weekend. You look at the second weekend, I think they're 2 different teams. So I know Canberra will travel well with their fans and supporters. Spirit got a big crowd last week for Avondale. See if they turn up again this weekend. 4:30 time slot makes them wait a bit longer. I think Canberra will come up on the Saturday, stay the Saturday night, and then drive back after the game on the Sunday. But it could be a really interesting one. And I think whoever wins this, if there is a winner, will have the upper hand going into the second half of the group stages. Final game of the weekend is a top of the group battle in Group D, and they're doing the battle out west. It's 4:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time, 1:30 Australian Western Standard Time at Frank Drago Reserve, Bayswater City versus West Apia. And it's the last time Apia will have to leave New South Wales this championship, and Bayswater's second of 3 home games in a row. Bayswater made it a scrap game against Metro last week at home. They'll need to do the same here against Apia. Apia will need to play their sexy football, as Franco Parisi would say, and hit Bayswater from every angle, just like they did against Sydney United. I think if both sides are able to play like they did last weekend, it will be a very tight and great game to watch. I think if one side is able to play how they did last weekend and the other side isn't, I think that's where the upper hand could come. And I don't think both their styles complement each other. I think if Apia play their way, Bayswater can't stop them. But if Bayswater make it a scrap and don't let Apia play their football, then it could make for a really tight and interesting contest. Going out west is a tough thing to do, and Bayswater and Apia both know that. So it'll be a tough game, but the winner will reap the rewards as they'll go top of the group, and pending the results in the Sydney United and Metro Stars game, which I already pointed on, these sides could benefit off that if it does end in a draw and have one foot in the quarterfinals going into round 4. So that's our round 3 preview. Let me know what you guys think. I'll post the polls up on the Instagram and I'll post the polls up on the Instagram the day of the game so you guys can vote who you think's going to win. For those involved in our tipping competition, I'll send out the tipping forms on Thursday tomorrow so you can put in your tips there. Really close contest in our tipping competition as well. But really interesting games coming into this weekend. And the last thing we got to do before I share what games I'll be at and we wrap up this week's episode is do our power rankings. And now our power rankings did experience some changes in the bottom half of the table compared to the top half. This will also be posted on Thursday as we get ready for this weekend's round 3 clashes. So, power rankings. First 4 stay unchanged. Heidelberg at first, West Apia second, South Melbourne third, and Avondale at fourth. Now this is where it does get interesting. Bayswater City are now sitting in 5th, climbing 2 spots up and jumping Moreton City, Excelsior, and Wollongong Wolves as the 5th team in our power rankings. Moreton City don't drop too far. They drop 1 spot back in 6th. Marconi Stallions make their first appearance, coming up 2 spots after their 4-0 win over South Hobart. And Broadmeadow Magic has snuck in at the number 8 spot. It was a toss-up between keeping Broadmeadow at 8th or Wollongong still in the top 8. But I elected to go for Broadmeadow Magic doing the away win against Sydney Olympic, and they were really competitive against Moreton City in their first game, and Wollongong after losing 3-0 to Heidelberg at home. That doesn't reflect well. The Broadmeadow Magic make their debut in the power rankings as well. When these come out on Instagram and Twitter, don't be afraid to let me know if I've got them wrong, if I got them correct, if your team's in the 8, if I've snubbed your team once again. Let me know what you guys think there. And you can always feel free to reach out at T2Talk_TAC. You can DM, you can comment in the comment sections of Instagram and Twitter posts. Let me know what you guys think of the championship. I might even post a question thing in where we can get your guys' opinions for next week's episodes. I'll consider what the options look like for that and get some of your opinions on as well. But also, the other thing is if you're in Sydney, you can always find me at the games. You'll see me in my Tier 2 Talk jersey. The white and green one has Tier 2 Talk 25 on the back. You see me at the grounds, don't be afraid to say hi. I will happily talk about any game you want, any teams, or just see how you guys are doing. That's where I think is the best way to contact me in terms of getting that real personal and friendly experience there. Now, in saying that, the games I'll be at this weekend, it really is going to be a super sad day for me because I'm going to the Marconi Stallions versus the Wollongong game at 1 o'clock at Marconi Stadium. And then I'll do the 5-minute drive to Adenza Park and watch the Sydney United versus Metro game. And then on the Sunday, I've made the decision to head up north to Magic Park. I'll be at the Broadmeadow Magic versus South Melbourne game on the Sunday. So if you're out at Magic Park, don't be afraid to say hi. You'll probably see me on the field doing my little videos and stuff as well. But looking forward to another great weekend of the Australia Championship at the halfway point of the group stages. Thank you again for listening to this week's episode. Always a pleasure to bring you the latest news, game previews, game reviews, interviews, and so much more here on Tier 2 Talk. I look forward to Wednesdays every week and getting the show out to you guys. Thank you again to Ben Collins from Heidelberg for joining this week. A pleasure to have someone of your caliber on the show and a great chat. Remember to like, subscribe, follow on the Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts for more information to see the power rankings when that comes out tomorrow. You'll see a snippet of our interview with Ben as well. And you'll see the fixtures and our matchday vlogs from the 3 games we're going to this weekend. I hope you guys are also enjoying the Australia Championship. Let me know if you guys want anything added or changed in these episodes. Always open to feedback and thoughts. Thank you again for your support. Thank you for listening for this week's episode. Get out to the local grounds. Watch the games on SBS. There's so much football going on, and the Australia Championship is just getting better and better every week. Until next Wednesday, I'm Keane McKenna. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.